alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
We may have a battle on the floor, but the battle is for the conference and the country.
The vote for the next Speaker of the House is expected to take several hours and multiple rounds.
This is not anything about the country. This is all about never Kevin. They just don't like Kevin McCarthy.
If you go to the American people and ask them if Congress is doing a good job, if they like the way things are run in Washington, D.C., you're probably going to get a big hell no.
When you have 94% of the people saying they've agreed on a speaker, the rest should coalesce around that.
Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Ed O'Keefe.
And I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns, coming to you from Capitol Hill. We're going on hour 4 now of this big speaker vote, and we begin tonight with a new session of Congress underway, and it's really been a historic day, to say the least.
It sure has, because for the first time in 100 years, the House has failed to elect a new speaker on the first ballot. Republicans are still in a stalemate on who exactly should take the gavel. Congressman Kevin McCarthy of California, who has sought the speakership for more than 10 years, didn't win a majority in his bid for speaker on multiple ballots. In the first vote, 19 Republicans, for example, voted for someone else. Now, today is the start of 2 years of divided government, with Republicans in charge of the House and Democrats maintaining control of the Senate.
So we've got team coverage for more on this. Scott McFarland and Robert Costa join us now. Scott is CBS News congressional correspondent, and Robert is CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent. Great to see you both. Scott, I want to start with you. I should note that you, just a few minutes ago, were on the other side of the Capitol, right outside the, well, I should say we're waiting for Scott to get mic'd up because he is racing over from the other side. But Bob, let's start with you then. What are you hearing about the situation that Kevin McCarthy is in right now? I know you spent all day talking to Republican lawmakers, and I know you've covered Republicans for so long here. Kind of how did we get to this point, and where do you see things headed?
So it's 5:01 p.m. on the East Coast. What we're watching right now is how long does this torturous process play out on the House floor. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader, is sitting there watching the board, watching all of these votes slip away from him. We've seen in the latest round an additional Republican now vote for Jim Jordan, the Ohio Republican, for Speaker. So McCarthy is losing votes, not gaining votes as this process plays out round over round. And the looming question at 5 o'clock is, will the House decide to adjourn at some point this evening? Some of the hardliners would like to see the House leave because they want to have a private GOP conference meeting where they can hash things out and maybe get behind another contender for Speaker of the House. McCarthy, however, does not want to leave the floor. I'm told by his allies he's staying all night if he needs to, because he believes if it gets off the floor, he loses control of the process. And he's not in control of the process right now, but the minute it becomes a private, in-house GOP drama, that becomes a variable for him and potentially the end of his political career.
So in essence, sunshine helps him, Bob, tonight. As long as this remains under the Klieg lights of the House chamber, he has some semblance of control over it all. We've got to get a sense of who exactly are these 19, 20 Republicans who consistently are voting against him and robbing him of the 218 votes needed. Earlier, our Nicole Killian spoke with Congressman Norman of South Carolina, one of those that's been a holdout. He explained part of why he and others have been so concerned and opposed to McCarthy. Let's take a listen to that.
Why not vet the Speaker? If you look at the last Congress, this past year, we were off 172 days. That's 5 months. Why not take a day or two? Is it holding committee assignments up? Yes. Is it are we delaying the people's business? I would argue this is the most important man that has the most power. He's third in line for president, and why not vet it? So there's no urgency, in my opinion. That's why I don't mind, going through the process. Let's see what the other names are.
So, Bob, that's one of these Never Kevin's opinions. But who are these others? What are their objections? And is this really that well organized, or does it remain sort of a disparate group who just simply don't like the guy?
It's organized in a sense that in the first round, you had a wide array of different options they were voting for. Andy Biggs, a conservative congressman, Jim Jordan, Jim Banks, a congressman from Indiana. All of these different names in that first round were being floated and offered up by some of the conservative critics of Kevin McCarthy. But what you've seen in the second and third round is a move and a strategy from these opposition forces against McCarthy, saying we're going to stop voting for our favorite people for Speaker, and we're going to nominate Jim Jordan, the incoming Judiciary Committee chairman, a favorite of former President Trump, someone Trump gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to. They're now coalescing around Jim Jordan as their alternative pick. Now, it's only about 20 people who are doing this, but their hope is by coalescing around Jordan, they're sending a message to the rest of their colleagues in the House Republican Conference that they believe Jordan is the one. Now, we've seen that this was something they only offered up on the second or third round, and so it remains to be seen if they have a different strategy to go to a different member should this last a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth round.
And I want to bring in Scott McFarlane now, who I'm told we do have, and Scott has raced over from the other side of the Capitol. You have been outside in the chamber, I should say, all day with that, fly-on-the-wall view. I'm wondering if you could give us a little sense of what you've seen today and what that indicates about what we may see going into this fourth ballot.
Yeah, it's a very short walk, except when it's really crowded here at the U.S. Capitol, so thanks for bearing with me. So Kevin McCarthy is in the chamber, and he's talking to members of his conference, but from what I've been watching, he's not talking to the members of his conference who've been a faction against him. He's talking to people who support him already. These can be lieutenants or who are doing his bidding with those members he's trying to sway. But for those members he's trying to sway, the outreach is not direct. Neither side seems like it's giving any message of conciliation to the other. The members from this faction with whom we've been speaking, including Bob Good and Matt Gaetz, indicate they're in this for the long haul. Kevin McCarthy insists his group in the conference is unified. So if there's going to be a meeting of the minds, it would have to happen at some point before this session ends, because if he lets them all go, leave the chamber to come back tomorrow, come back Thursday, there's a possibility more splinter or there are more defections. And I think there's a realization of that in the House chamber right now. Democrats are as relaxed as one can be under the circumstances as they watch this play out in front of them. Nancy Pelosi told us when we asked her what she thought of this, she said it was disrespectful to the institution to have this type of fissure happening as the nation watches the U.S. House of Representatives. We asked what she would do if she were in McCarthy's position, and she said, that's their problem. Let them figure it out. So that's where we are at the end of a third ballot. I'll note among the 19 is Mary Miller of Illinois. Her backstory is worth noting here. She won a particularly contentious Republican primary in Illinois against one of McCarthy's best friends in Congress, Rodney Davis. She comes here today and has now made 3 votes against Speaker McCarthy, or would-be Speaker McCarthy, trying to prevent a Speaker McCarthy. People like that don't give any indication they're ready to jump back into McCarthy's camp unless he offers them something in return. And at this point, there doesn't appear to be, Ed and Caitlin, any silver bullet, fig leaf, or concession he can give to get this group back on board, because they're all there with their different arguments, their different ideas, and presumably their different asks.
Now, Scott and Bob, one of the things that's always a signal of where things could be headed next is if food has been ordered. Neither of you has seen any evidence that somebody's trucking in boxes of pizza or serving up gumbo in Steve Scalise's office or anything else yet, right? I mean, the idea here is keep everybody on the floor, don't let this end, keep it going through the night, right?
Think about the added magnetic pull. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just saying, Ed, where's our food order for red and blue? We've been here all day.
That's fair. That's fair. Scott, you were going to say what?
add the added magnetic pull on these members of their families all being here.
Right.
Their close friends are all here. Their orbit of success is all here. Moms, dads, kids, best friends, brothers, college roommates. They've all come here today for this celebratory first day. It's a tradition. There's food all over the place. Everybody's got a banquet planned in celebration of their victory. All that's on hold as this plays out. One would think that'd be added leverage to find a consensus for Republicans, but even that doesn't seem to be doing the trick.
Yeah, Scott, we've been perched up here all day and have seen a lot of these family members nicely dressed walking across the street. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of kids were here today and they didn't make it this far, understandably. But Scott McFarlane and Robert Costa, you both did. Thanks for staying with us. We appreciate your time and we'll see you soon. So for more on all of this, let's bring in Connecticut Democratic Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who joins us now from the Capitol as well. She's the outgoing chair of the Appropriations Committee, but you will be the ranking member of the committee. Congresswoman DeLauro, thank you for being here. Can you give us a sense of how Democrats are feeling about this? Is there any fatigue setting in among Democratic lawmakers, or are members of the party thinking, let's stick this out, show up, so that McCarthy has to continue to reach that threshold?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to join you this afternoon. It is what looks to be a long day on Capitol Hill. But I think it's just interesting to note that, the country and the American people are facing very serious challenges, economic challenges, and the cost of living and issues that, surround crime. And they are looking to the Congress to address some of these very, very basic issues on their behalf. And what I think is dispiriting is not dispiriting among Democrats, but is that a party that has really sought power in the majority and has received it, albeit with a very small majority, is really internally so fractured as to its inability to govern. We are here to govern. This is not about an intra-party fight or a process. The American people deserve better, and they should get better. No, Democrats are, we are united, as our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, has spoken about today. We are ready to do the business of the country, as we were in the last Congress, in the 117th, where we're still at, where we delivered a bipartisan omnibus bill in both the House and Senate, which has now been passed by the president, which deals with the challenges, the economic challenges that the people of this country face.
I get your point, Congresswoman, about, you guys are sitting back and watching this train wreck roll by. But give us a sense of the instructions you have from your leadership about what to anticipate through the rest of tonight, potentially into tomorrow. Your instructions are to stay put, right? Don't leave the building?
There really aren't instructions. Let me be clear about that. There is a commitment by Democrats to stay here until the job gets done. And that's what we will do. There's been no set of instructions delivered. It would seem that the instructions are being delivered on the other side of the aisle. But we are prepared to be here for the long haul, for however long it takes, because it is about the business of government, and it is governing and addressing the issues. None of us can get sworn in until there is a Speaker of the House. Now, that's what I said is that, what the public is watching is an intra-party fight that is creating really the stopping of government and government working. That's not what we should be doing here. I would have thought that being in power, that they would have come to the floor of the House united, prepared to undertake the work of the country.
And speaking of that business of governing, we mentioned that you are the outgoing chair of the Appropriations Committee. You'll be the ranking member. This is the first time in this new Congress that we're expecting to have all 4 women controlling the Appropriations Committees on the House and the Senate side. When you're looking at this business of governing, however, are you concerned that writing appropriations bills are going to be more difficult given the dynamics that we are seeing today? Are we going to be at this kind of perpetual standstill, especially when it gets to the business of funding the government and operating the budget?
Well, understand that with regard to appropriations, that you have to have both parties that come together. That's why I was so proud of our having a bipartisan vote on the House side and on the Senate side. On the House, it was 225 to 201. 9 Republican members voted with us. There was a larger majority on the Senate side. That was a bipartisan bill because with appropriations, the bills need to be bicameral and also bipartisan in order for the president to sign. I'm excited about for women holding the top positions in both the House and the Senate. You know, there's often the phrase that women need to be at the table. Well, quite frankly, women are the table in this regard, and I look forward to working with my Democratic colleagues and my Republican colleagues who I've been in touch with as we move to pass appropriations bills, because those bills are the central aspect of the federal government, which is why what we did in December to pass the $1.7 trillion bill to address the country's needs, their cost of living needs, the issues around enforcement, about our national defense, about our commitment to disaster relief, about our commitment to Ukraine. That was a bipartisan, bicameral vote, and the Democrats did it. We pulled it off, and on our side, we had a 2-vote majority. As I said, it needs to be bicameral, bipartisan, in order for the president to be able to sign it. I look forward to working with my colleagues in the House and the Senate, Congresswoman Granger, Senators Murray and Collins, as we work to pass an appropriations bill for 2023.
And to remind the uninitiated what that is, you guys are literally, actually, you women, sorry, I should put a finer point on that. You women are literally responsible for writing the legislation that explains and details how the federal government is going to spend more than $1 trillion. It's the first time 4 women, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans are leading the House and Senate committees that do that. And it's a good reminder that even, and a good reminder that even as Congress diversifies with more women, more Black, Latino, Asian, gay, lesbian members, you've now also, those of you who've been around a while, earned enough seniority to be in charge of those committees and really wield power like women never have before on the Hill.
Absolutely, and at a time where majority of women are running their household finances.
Exactly.
But I would just say to you, it is about the caliber of people who are, who are holding the reins of this committee. They're people who have come to serve. They know why they are here, and that is to be able to meet the needs, to meet the economic challenges of the American people, and that's the goal. It is not about an intra-party squabble, a fight, or some personal aggrandizement for one's own self-satisfaction. We have an obligation. We are here at the behest of the people that we represent. They put their trust in us to be able to address the issues that they face in their everyday life, and it has been serious. It is no soundbite to say that people live paycheck to paycheck today. They are struggling. Our job is to make sure that what we do with the 12 appropriations bills, one bill that gets passed that addresses those needs and provides that financial security for people.
All right, well, we will see when this Congress can get to that business of governing. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And what a way to start the new year. Coming up next, we have continuing coverage of this House stalemate for just who will become the next Speaker of the House. We're breaking down where things stand and what could happen next. Still a lot of questions. You're streaming Red and Blue.
I don't see how a few people, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 20, sit because they want a gavel that they can't earn by the conference of themselves. That would be interesting to me. That's not what the constituents voted them for.
Original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely. As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, there are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme,
states from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
The carnage in our nation's schools has become painfully repetitive.
Not one more child!
School shootings have parents fighting mad.
I promised my daughter I was going to fight. It's going to keep on happening.
And teachers taking lessons in how to fight back.
This is an exercise.
We approach it as it's you or them.
It shouldn't have to be your teacher's job to protect your life.
But will the battle over gun control,
People are afraid that they're going to lose their gun rights altogether,
be the hardest lesson of all?
The exercise, you're having to shoot at an adult. Are you prepared to have to kill one of your students?
Guns in the Classroom, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Ed O'Keefe alongside Caitlin Huey-Burns here on Capitol Hill. It's been a gorgeous day as we've watched the chaos unfold there on the House floor. We are still waiting for the House to decide its next speaker. Through 3 rounds of voting, no one has won a majority of the votes so far. Among those who's been casting a ballot today, Kentucky Republican Congressman James Comer, who is set to be the incoming chair of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, chairman presumed, welcome to Red and Blue. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening. First off, give us your current understanding of how the rest of the day may unfold. There's some reporting that those that are voting against Mr. McCarthy would like the chamber to adjourn so that you all could take this behind closed doors. Is that what's going to happen, or are you hearing otherwise?
No, I'm hearing that. That's one of the options. We have the option we can continue voting, and it doesn't appear that much is going to change with that. The other option is, as you mentioned, to adjourn and let the Republicans huddle up again and see if we can work it out.
What do you make of how this has gone today? I know it's kind of been expected for the last several days, but is this how you all wanted to really start the year?
Well, you know, this is democracy in action. This is the way it's supposed to be. I'm sure if there were TV cameras when the founding fathers were trying to organize this great nation, that we would have seen a lot of what we're seeing today. You have strong opinions. You have 435 leaders that represent vastly diverse parts of America trying to agree on a very important position, the leader of this body for the next 2 years. And I would have much preferred that we could have gotten our differences ironed out before it reached the floor today. But in reality, this is kind of the way this body was created, to be able to have public debate and try to come to a consensus.
But Congressman, you are the incoming chair of the Oversight Committee. I would assume that you are very eager to get to work as you have detailed the investigations that you want to begin conducting. Is there a sense of fatigue setting in among Republicans, among your colleagues, among people that you're talking to, or even among yourself, with yourself, that you know Congress kind of needs to get to this business of governing?
Yeah, I think we're going to do fine in the governing business. Unfortunately, this is being played out across America. But again, I think this is an exercise in democracy. You've always heard the old expression, making a piece of legislation is like creating sausage. Everyone likes the end product, but nobody wants to see it be made. And that's kind of what's happening on the floor right now. I think we'll get to 218 eventually. But with respect to my job as chairman of the Oversight Committee and the investigations we're pursuing and the information we're trying to obtain, this doesn't set us back at all. We're full speed ahead.
So let's talk a little bit about what it is you're seeking from the Biden administration. We know from conversations you had with reporters and with voters before the election and since, the goal is to look into things regarding the Justice Department, regarding Hunter Biden or the Biden family and its businesses. What else? What is the hope here in the next, let's say, 6 months exactly as this new Congress begins? What are you hoping to learn? What are you hoping to expose and show the world?
Well, ironically, what we've requested all pertains to tax dollars. Everything that we've requested thus far from the Biden administration over the past year and a half has pertained to COVID spending. It's pertained to the debacle in Afghanistan. It's pertained to the lack of border security and how much this is costing the taxpayers in transporting these illegals and housing these illegals and educating these illegals. So all of the questions and information we requested from the Biden administration has pertained to just exactly what the Oversight Committee is supposed to do, oversee our federal tax dollars. Unfortunately, the Democrats in Washington have had no interest in providing any oversight over the Biden administration, and that changes today. Regardless of what happens and who we elect Speaker at the end of the day, the Republicans are going to be focused on getting the backs of the American taxpayers, and the Oversight Committee, we're going to be the frontline troops in that endeavor.
And I know last week the White House wrote back to you and to Chairman presumed Jim Jordan and said, you've made a bunch of requests for information over the last year and a half. You've got to make them again now that you're going to be chairman because you actually didn't have the mandate legally, in their view, to make those requests. You ready to make them again? You see them as slow walking you at this point, or are you anticipating they'll eventually respond?
Well, I'm going to request them again, and they're doing what's happening here on the House floor today. I mean, they're slow walking, they're delaying the inevitable. But what's disappointing is that information was requested over the past year and a half. And again, I haven't requested specific information pertaining to any of the Biden family influence peddling investigation from the administration. What we've requested pertains to tax dollars. And unfortunately, the administration said, you know what, we're not going to give you anything because you were in the minority. If you want any information from us, you're going to have to start all over. I don't think that's what the American people want from this administration. I think the American people realize that in the name of COVID over the past 3 years, this body has spent too much money, and that's why we have inflation. So what we're supposed to do on the Oversight Committee is make sure tax dollars weren't wasted.
Let's just pause 1 second here, Congressman, to listen to the House clerk who just... Okay, so this process is beginning again. We're now heading into the fourth round, is what she just announced. You see there, Congressman Tom Cole.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House stands adjourned until noon tomorrow.
There you go.
Okay, so we've got
big.
some news.
It's okay, Congressman.
So we are going, Congressman, they have just announced that they are going to adjourn until tomorrow at noon. Yeah, you're right. So you're right there. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was what was probably going to be inevitable. I believe that'll give more people time to try to iron out our differences on the Republican side. I wish we could have done it today, but unfortunately it's going to take an extra day. But again, you look at what we're debating in here. This is who's going to lead this body over the next 2 years, a body of Congress that I believe has spent too much money over the past 2 years. That's created inflation. We have a crisis at the southern border. We have many questions pertaining to COVID-19 and its origination. So the leader of this body is very important, and I think the American people are seeing democracy and work, and I'm confident that we're going to get to 218 as soon as possible.
And Congressman, you obviously have supported Kevin McCarthy, but do you think that he should offer any more concessions at this point to this group, or do you think that everything's been left on the field, on the table? Is there anything else that could happen here to persuade these members?
Well, I think Kevin's offered a lot. I mean, much of what they requested would be more along the lines of gimmickry, as I would say. I mean, the motion to vacate, that's just a gimmick. That's just a political tool. If we have something that happens with the speaker that's so bad that an overwhelming majority of Congress is going to want to remove that speaker, we'll do it, and we'll make sure that speaker resigns. But look, I'm in favor of whatever motions that they want to have on the table. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that we should be arguing over is policy. We have a policy deficiency here in this body. We've got to secure our southern border. We've got to get inflation under control, and that starts with reducing spending right here in this building. And we should be able to find more about the information regarding COVID-19 and what really went on in that lab in Wuhan. This administration, this past Congress hasn't been serious about it, and Republicans will be. So I know there's a lot of frustration out there, but at the end of the day, this is a very important decision, and this is what democracy is all about. These decisions need to be aired out in public. We're going to have more public hearings. And I think that today is just the first step in what we're going to see in a more democratic body.
Give us a sense real quick as we wrap up our time with you, and you've been really generous with it, Congressman. How soon do you anticipate holding your first Oversight Committee hearing, and what would it be about?
Well, the first Oversight Committee hearing is going to be about COVID spending. As I said earlier, we're very concerned about the amount of money that's been wasted in the name of COVID, and I'm talking about specifically the unemployment insurance fraud. I'm talking about PPP loan fraud. Much of the stimulus money didn't go where it was intended. A lot of the money that was supposed to go to public education to make our schools safer from COVID was spent elsewhere. These are areas that need to be investigated, and people need to be held accountable for misusing our tax dollars. So that's where we're going to start.
Kentucky Congressman James Comer, who at some point, if this House ever convenes formally, is set to become chairman of the Oversight Committee. Thank you for spending some time with us. We look forward to speaking with you again once you are chairman and once those hearings get underway. Be well. Happy New Year.
Thank you for having me. You too.
The decision on who will be the Speaker of the House is undecided amid a Republican stalemate. We'll break down the strategy behind the ongoing contest and what could happen when they reconvene tomorrow. You're streaming Red and Blue.
This town desperately needs change, and if it's a few of us who have to stand in the breach to force it, we are willing to do so for as long as it takes.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became this sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future?
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women. What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done? We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Ed O'Keefe. The House is adjourned for the day without selecting a speaker. The first time this has happened in 100 years. They went 3 rounds and they couldn't come up with somebody. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarlane was there in the rafters or just outside the House chamber most of the afternoon and joins us now. Scott, you're definitely earning your pay today. Let's reset for people who may just be tuning in, who maybe only saw this on Twitter or in a news alert earlier in the day. What has transpired and where could things go next?
Even some members of the U.S. House were surprised by what just happened based on the messages I'm getting. There was this unanimous consent vote to adjourn this whole thing, call it off for the day, and come back tomorrow at 12 p.m., made by the top Republican on the House Rules Committee, who has some type of jurisdiction over the rules of the House, Tom Cole of Oklahoma. This may not play into the hands of Kevin McCarthy at all. He no longer will have his conference in his sight lines or in his lieutenant's sight lines, but obviously he can still communicate with them, still have some ability to negotiate or have talks with the 20 members of this breakaway faction. Democrats were jovial in spirit and jovial in mood throughout today. If they were being fatigued by all this, it wasn't showing, but they now get a rest for tomorrow. But their game plan remains the same. Stay unified and will not engage in trying to help the Republicans bail themselves out of this problem. Hakeem Jeffries, when I asked him if there'd been outreach from Republicans to him, laughed in response. So this picks up tomorrow with a 4th ballot, and all types of potential, Caitlin and Ed, for things to change or move down a different trajectory because of the overnight break. I'll add this point. Mrs. McFarlane thought it was crazy when I had a 40-ounce coffee to start the day today. Now who looks like the wise person? Who's the visionary?
You are, for sure. Absolutely.
And Scott, I hope you've been drinking water, too, because I know you've been sprinting all over this campus. I mean, you were talking to us earlier today about the idea that McCarthy had essentially offered everything he had to give to these folks. And what we saw throughout the day was not only that they stay, opposed to him, but their numbers grew from 19 to 20 at this latest round. This seems like you can't call it anything but a victory for those opposed to McCarthy at this point.
There may be more concessions to offer. There's no indication Kevin McCarthy has emptied the arsenal of things he can offer this group. But the challenge, according to members with whom I'm speaking, is these 20 are not speaking with one voice in terms of their needs or wants or asks. They may be speaking with one voice in that they all voted for Jim Jordan on the 2nd and 3rd ballots, but they don't have a singular silver bullet solution that he can offer. So this may have to be a series of piecemeal concessions, and that's where things get complicated because it's far from clear he has a litany of options. What's more, once you start yielding to a few of these members, what do the others ask for? Their trajectory from here is far from clear, and them all leaving for the night doesn't seem to make things any simpler for Kevin McCarthy.
And let's remind people of how unprecedented this is. Yeah. This is something that's supposed to happen per the Constitution. They were supposed to come in this morning, bring their wives, their parents, their kids for the first day of school, in essence, quickly come up with a speaker and get sworn in and move on. And for the first time in 100 years, it didn't happen. One of the practical things as I sit here talking to you guys I think of is we're missing somebody now in the presidential line of succession. The speaker is supposed to be right after the vice president. Tonight, there isn't somebody there. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's happened here. Not that there's going to be a problem, and God forbid we need that, but that's the kind of thing that starts to happen now. There is no House of Representatives as we know it. There is no member of the House currently sworn in to consider legislation or do something. Maybe there will be by this time tomorrow. We haven't had that since the 1920s. And in this day and age, in the social media and the streaming and the television age, not only is this a national story, it's a global story. And I think that's part of what makes this so remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, what happens in these next 12 hours or so without a House of Representatives at this point?
There's no rules to the House. There are no members of the House. There's a clerk who'll administer things. And I'll add one footnote. Ed and Caitlin, 4 years ago, Congress started with a government shutdown. 2 years ago, with a raging pandemic. Now this.
Yeah. Scott McFarlane, thank you for that. We'll talk to you later.
We are going to go over to the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, where senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now. Hey, Weijia, good to see you. So, the president is just back from his vacation. The problems were kind of mounting for him in terms of how he would deal with the divided Congress for the first time in his presidency. But can you give us a sense now of kind of how the White House is looking at this? The idea that we don't have a Speaker of the House on this day that was supposed to be swearing-in day.
Well, officially, the White House is not touching this with a 10-foot pole. In fact, today, the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was pressed several times, by this reporter included, about how the president was reacting to the chaos, just down the street here. In fact, I even asked if he was observing and watching the votes, because she told us that, he would not be interjecting. So how about just watching it unfold? And she wouldn't even say that he had watched any of the vote. And certainly, the official message is that no matter how this shakes out, no matter what happens, the president is prepared to work with Republicans to, get more things done on his agenda rather than focus on the infighting that's happening in the other party. And so tomorrow he actually will highlight some of that bipartisanship. He's traveling to Kentucky. He'll be standing next to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, as well as other governors from Ohio and Kentucky, because the administration has just approved $2 billion or so for a bridge that connects Kentucky and Ohio. And this is really meant to showcase the fact that there is still the possibility of bipartisanship. Despite what's happening on Capitol Hill right now, they're trying to turn the page and say that we are focused on the future and that we're just going to let this process play out. So to answer your question, Caitlin, the White House is not reacting to what we are all watching on the House floor.
Yeah, that will be a significant visual of McConnell and Biden standing next to each other in Kentucky. Weijia Jiang, thank you so much on this fast-moving news day over on this side of Pennsylvania Avenue. We appreciate your insights from the White House.
Stay with us. Red and Blue will continue in a moment.
The power doesn't reside in the Speaker. It doesn't in the majority leader nor the minority leader, nor the whips. The power.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app.
You ready?
A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming Gender.
I did not realize that you could change your gender.
Realizing how you feel.
You can be a boy, sometimes you feel like a girl, sometimes you feel like both.
Redefining who you are.
Identify as trans.
Gender fluid.
Non-binary and queer.
Is the idea of gender a thing of the past?
And to be yourself, always, no matter what anyone says, I love you.
Are the kids all right? Gender. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme.
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
Oh! You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Stories that inform. Or you can be really old at 60 And you can be really young at 85.
Inspire. How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to a special edition of Red and Blue live from Capitol Hill. I'm Ed O'Keefe. The House is adjourned for the day without naming a speaker, something we haven't seen in 100 years. And the members are now free to go about their business for the night. One of them has joined us here, just down the hall from his office in the Cannon House office building. Josh Gottheimer, Democrat of New Jersey, co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
How do you guys solve this problem?
Well, right now I think it's a little bit more on their side, this problem to solve. I don't think us jumping in right now will help them solve this one. But, what we saw tonight, which is not just historic on the first vote loss, but the fact that they're still stuck. And the question will be, now that we've adjourned for the evening, and I presume they're going to spend a lot of time together in a family discussion, can they break the logjam? I guess we'll see tomorrow.
So the Problem Solvers Caucus is one of those groups designed to bring the two parties together.
Correct.
To do what it's named to do, solve problems.
Yes.
Let's say they get through this one in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yes.
You got to get down to the business of governing.
Correct.
How do you work with Republicans in this environment where they know there may be 19 or 20 arch conservative Republicans ready to just inject poison into the process at a moment's notice?
This past Congress, we had a 4-seat majority
right.
in the House, and obviously 50-50 Senate, and we remarkably were able to get a ton of bipartisan legislation done, from infrastructure to building chips in the United States, right, to standing by our veterans, to passing, investing in police reform legislation. So bill after bill, we were able to do it in a bipartisan way. At the end of the day, we've got to govern for the country, and we'll get it done. And it will mean that people like me will continue to sit down and work across the aisle to figure out where we can get things done. You're always going to have people who disagree. We have them on our side who, no matter what we offer and what kind of legislation we're able to get to together, vote no. That's going to happen. But there's plenty that needs to get done for the country. Opioids, mental health legislation. There are plenty of things we can come together on.
Okay, so what's the next thing to be teed up that maybe was on the to-do list last session that you could pick up and start working on this year?
Well, on the big side, we'd really like to get something done in immigration reform.
Okay.
And many of us have been working on that for years. Would love to get it done. I mean, it's tough, as you know, but politically challenging for a lot of folks. But I think we really can find a pathway there. As I mentioned, I think things like mental health and opioids legislation are ones we can get done. You've got trickier things like a debt ceiling to deal with, which we will have to deal with as a Congress. Doing more domestic manufacturing legislation, and similar to the CHIPS bill, standing up to China, I think are things we can get done. Supporting law enforcement also on the list. On the Financial Services Committee, I think we can take steps on things like protecting our seniors, on making sure we actually put together legislation on fintech, and on crypto, which I think I've been fighting for years. And there's a real bipartisan opportunity there.
You are, for Democrats at least, kind of a Republican whisperer, given this caucus that you're a member of. In your conversations with GOP colleagues in the last few days, or even today, privately, what are they telling you as they see this unfold?
Well, I think like most people, and I guess I wouldn't say whisperer, I would say doing my job, which is just what you'd hope people would do, which is sit down and talk to each other and figure it out. So I think a lot of my colleagues that I work with a lot, there's 29 Republicans in the Problem Solvers Caucus, they want to get to governing. So they want to move this along. They're also very frustrated, I think, as you see, with the more extreme members of their caucus who are doing nothing but just obstructing. So the question is, and they've made massive concessions to them on rules, things that I strongly disagree with, like bringing back the motion to vacate, where 5 members of Congress can literally disrupt the whole institution at any time. So what I think they'd like to happen is for folks to sit down around the table, be reasonable, work out what they need, and we can get this vote. They can get this vote done, and we can move forward so we can get to the business. But we saw today. Right now, they have no interest in moving forward, and so this opens up a world of possibilities of what tomorrow could look like.
Josh Gottheimer is a congressman from New Jersey. a moderate guy, works with the other side, Problem Solvers Caucus, someone who will be in the thick of it as this new session gets underway, whenever it gets underway.
Yes. Hopefully a lot if it means getting stuff done for the country first.
Right.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks for being
Good
here. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Stay with us. Big question of the day, of course, is what happens now? Well, with no one hitting the magic majority number, the road to House Speaker is shaping up to be a bit more complicated. We'll talk more about it. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
The members holding all this up think they're more stubborn. They think they're standing on some kind of principle. They're not. They're standing for only themselves and more sound bites. The rest of us are standing for principle against political terrorism. We will not be held hostage against a select few that did nothing to help us get this majority.
When weather turns extreme,
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Go to the ends of the earth. Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
There we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
My name is Nora. How are you doing?
We go to stories. We travel there because we can bring someone to that story.
You have spinal issues and you can hit the ball that far.
It feels so good.
That's so incredible.
Tell me, what do you love about running?
The news doesn't have to always be depressing. It can be uplifting. That human connection that we create on the broadcast every night is incredibly important.
You ready?
A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Technology is baked into the DNA of our generation.
Now streaming Chasing Fame.
I like being famous. I would love for my career to launch.
Is the hunt for social media popularity an opportunity?
To get verified is one of my big goals. If I get the blue check mark, it would open a lot of doors.
Or an obsession?
I spend a lot of time looking in the mirror because I want to look perfect.
Are the kids all right? Chasing Fame, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We're really excited that we've been honored with the Emmy Award for Outstanding Live News Program. But we know we couldn't have done that without you. So thank you. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7 on CBS.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Ed O'Keefe.
Alongside Caitlin Huey-Burns, which is me. You can tell we're going on hour 4, hour 5 of our coverage here from Capitol Hill. The House has just adjourned for the day without selecting a speaker, despite 3 rounds of voting. So for more, let's bring in our power panel, Ashley Etienne and Kevin Sheridan. Ashley is a CBS News political contributor and former communications director for Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Kevin is a former communications director and senior advisor for Paul Ryan. Good to have you both with us. Kevin, I want to start with you because the spotlight today has been on Republicans and Kevin McCarthy. We were all pretty shocked here to see that they adjourned for the day and that we don't have a speaker and that we don't have a functioning House of Representatives until maybe tomorrow. Kevin, I'm wondering what you make of everything that we've seen today and what it says about the state of the Republican Party right now.
Not good. I was surprised that they adjourned tonight, too. I thought they would probably do another couple of rounds of voting, but apparently they don't see any movement happening, at least today. I think the Freedom Caucus originally was trying to embarrass Kevin McCarthy, trying to weaken him, get concessions from him. Now it seems like there may be, since the number is only 5 that need to stand in his way, there may be a real chance of him not getting there at all. And then we're talking about alternatives. We're talking about all sorts of different scenarios playing out starting tomorrow.
To both of you, and Kevin, again, let's start with you because it's your party in trouble. What is today supposed to look like? And remind our viewers of sort of the trappings that come with becoming the new speaker and all the other ceremony that still has to get addressed once we figure out who exactly is going to be in charge of the chamber.
Yeah, until this happens, we do not have a House of Representatives at all. So this absolutely has to happen. It's in the Constitution. Normally, it's a ceremonial procedure. They had an internal caucus vote last month, and that's where this should have been hashed out. If these 20 members really were never going to come along, something else, a different approach should have been taken. And I know they've been continuing to work on them. The problem is at least 5, maybe more than that, 10 or more, may not want to negotiate. They may have no interest in negotiation. They just want to humiliate Kevin McCarthy, and we're going to end up with a different candidate emerging.
Ashley, there was a report from our Scott McFarlane earlier in the day. He saw former Speaker Pelosi posing for photos underneath her new portrait in the Speaker's lobby. I mean, some might say that was like dancing on the grave of the Republicans as they were trying to figure out what to do, but also kind of taking a victory lap there as the chaos was ensuing in the chamber. This was always a big day for her as you welcome in new members of both parties and their families and their children.
Yeah, I think it's a little extreme to say that she's walking on a dead man's grave here, but she definitely looks like she's got the weight of the world off of her shoulders and is having a good time. But here's what I noticed, Ed. This, the vote today exposes a lot of failures for McCarthy that's going to have implications for his speakership if he actually becomes Speaker. One is that he actually clearly doesn't have the pulse and a handle on his caucus. 2, his whip team is ineffective. And 3, there is no out yet. We have no idea how he plans to get out of this bind. To Kevin's point earlier, I think he had to pull down the votes today because it's trending in the wrong directions. He was actually losing more votes with every passing vote, so he had to pull it down today. So I think this is a major embarrassment for Kevin McCarthy. It's a major embarrassment for the Republican Party, especially at a time when they should be celebrating their wins in the midterm election.
Yeah, well, we will see how it unfolds tomorrow. Ashley Etienne and Kevin Sheridan, thank you for sticking around. We appreciate it.
And that does it for today, for us here at least. But tomorrow, another day.
It is.
Another round of votes. You can stream Red and Blue Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, you can see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head to cbsnews.com/red and blue.
You ready? A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.